Welcome to this episode of the ASQ podcast, where we focus on life, leadership, and culture. On today's episode, we're introducing you to our new venture, ASQ Empowerment Services. Stay tuned. So, how are you?
I'm well.
I'm excited about doing this episode.
Yeah, this has been an evolution, I think, of when we started to exactly doing this now.
Yes.
So I'm a little nervous and excited all at the same time because we're kind of like in our quest, in our soul's quest, right? We have evolved into something, and this is kind of like exciting what we're doing now. So
I mean, it's definitely exciting. So let's do this so that we can. So today we're talking about our new venture,
correct?
ASQ Empowerment Services.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just give us a little sort of brief summary of what we do?
Okay.
What is ASQ Empowerment Services?
So what we'd arrived at, right? So we started our podcast really talking about individuals, right? And the journey of individuals to find themselves and live from their authentic point of view, right?
This is good because I was going to ask you why.
Yes.
Why the change? What's the evolution? So good. Incorporate that.
So life is like a practical exercise, right? Because life, it's about action. In life, it's about evolving and learning new things and discarding what's not useful and moving ahead, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've been privileged and lucky to at an early age really have the understanding of what true leadership is, right? Mm-hmm. Which is really helping others live to their full potential, right? So I was ingrained with that as a young person from Ken Mullen and Betty Medina, who were my mentors growing up. And throughout my own personal evolution in life, right, I was able to use those skills in situations, right? And they've been extremely helpful for my life, in that concept of always looking at the individual and how can we help that individual be a part of the collective, right? Mm-hmm. And be a part of something. Now, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, right? So with ASQ Empowerment Services in the last 3-4 years of my personal professional life, right, there was like an intertwining thing within my own personal growth, right, and also my career development and the obstacles and things that come from that. Mm-hmm. And you and I being able to encounter different types of people in different settings kind of like teaches you from experience, right? And from a theoretical point of view, in your point, from your schooling, really what leadership is all about. And we always talk about the micro and the macro, and it's almost as if one cannot live without the other, right? So it doesn't matter what setting you're in. Every time that you have an individual and a group, right, or an individual or a collective vision, mm-hmm. there's always going to be a dance that sometimes is easy, mm-hmm. but sometimes, most of the time, is tumultuous, right? Mm-hmm. Our issue in our modern society has nothing to do with technology. It has nothing to do with expertise. Knowledge is out there. Our main issues and our challenges have always been the way that we interact and how the micro, the individual, relates with the collective, mm-hmm. either in an organization, in a family. So leadership, in essence, right, it's that understanding of personal development married, right, and dancing with the overall. Sometimes you have a great partners, and sometimes you don't. And the idea is to be able to understand the navigation between those two things. Mm-hmm. So to me, it's the catalyst of growth of us. It's been able to go into our personal journeys, both from the standpoint of individuals, but also from a leadership standpoint, right? And now being able to share in our way, from our point of view, mm-hmm. right, how to empower others and organizations to be better and to evolve and to grow. So I think that's the catalyst that led us to where we are. You know, we started doing a lot of philosophical understandings, but you always need the foundation of a strong individual for a collective to actually prosper. So mm-hmm. it's like that dance. Which one is, how do you manage the two? And that's always been intriguing to us. That's why you went to school. Yeah. And that's one of the things that I have like lived experiences on.
Yeah. Very good. I like that. So of course, we're not going to change this aspect. I love doing the whole quotes thing. So I have a quote that falls in line with what we're now doing. And it is, and I don't know who wrote this quote, but it says, we can change culture if we change behavior. And I think that's kind of what you're alluding to, is that you and I have both lived experiences, you know, different experiences, but lived experiences. And then also with, you know, my education, the theoretical aspect,
correct,
you know, to sort of back that up is what we're coming from.
And I do like this quote, right? Because it kind of like shows the complexity of the situation, right? So we can't change culture if we change behavior, right? Now behaviors, right? They happen at an individual level, right? And based on that individual level, it depends how other people react
in the group,
right? And how those behaviors affect the mentality of a person. And then you could begin to look at the impact that it collectively has on the whole.
Which creates the culture,
right?
Because those are assumptions.
Because, yes.
That we make.
And that's the part that it's intriguing. But I'm of the firm belief that if you always are coming from a point of view of authenticity, while at the same token allowing somebody else to also be their authentic selves, right? It's somewhere in the middle when you guys meet. That's when beauty happens, right? And that's when you could see both the personal growth and also the cultural shifts, that need to happen in an organization, you know. And it takes there's a growing pain, individually and collectively.
I was going to say, as individuals, definitely. Yeah.
So
it takes a level of courage to face those the things that we need to change about ourselves, or accepting that, okay, this is something that I probably need to modify in my life to be more effective and be more proactive and be, you know, helpful to the group and the organization.
Exactly, for the group, because it's important to understand that we may have a vision, right, for an idea or a business or an organization, right? That's our objective, right? And the person who came up with this vision, or the collective that came up with this vision, right, have to be able to exemplify the behaviors of that vision and know those values. Because if that doesn't happen, if there's no congruency within the organization as to demonstrating all those individual behaviors in specific areas, right, and living authentically, then you will always have friction at work. And if people sit back and think about it, right, if you look at the organization that you're with, or the group that you belong to, or something like that, most of the issues that are happening there have nothing to do with the technical expertise or the domain of expertise of that area, right? Because in finances and numbers don't really change. Those are standard practices, right? I could understand, like in human services, when you're working with individuals, right, how a systemic action could actually be difficult to perform because you have to adjust to the individual, right? So, but the functions of what the job requires very seldom are the issues, right? It's the interpersonal things. It is the conflict that happens between the individual and the culture, and vice versa.
Correct.
Right? So that dance, it's the intriguing part. Right? And that's the beauty of it all.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So I'm glad you touched on that, because I wanted people to understand exactly where we were coming from and what the change was, and why it's so important what we're doing. So to sort of just put it out there, I want to talk about our vision, our mission, and our values, because I think that's something that we really are. Well, like any business, you have a vision and a mission, but our values are really important for you and I, that is. So I'm just going to read our mission really quick. Okay. All right. So our mission, ASQ Empowerment's mission, is to empower individuals at all levels to discover their authentic leadership style, inspire their teams, and foster environments where innovation, growth, and a deep sense of belonging flourish.
Correct. Right. So if you look at a person, right? So let's say individuals at all levels to discover their authentic self, right? within the scope of a culture, of an organization, of a group, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody plays a certain role,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the more authentically you are aligned within yourself, you understand that there's a big portion of you that gets poured into that role, right? And if you are aligned authentically based on your values, based on who you are as an individual, the more you understand that, you will flourish in that role.
Correct.
Right? Mm-hmm. Consequently, the culture benefits, right? Exponentially.
Yeah.
Right? Because you hear the old adage is like, people don't leave because of money. They leave an organization because of culture.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
Because that thing, that desire that we have inside of us, right, to fulfill our authentic selves, right, needs to manifest in an environment, and typically it's with each other, right? And then when you start thinking about teams, mm-hmm. and how teams interact, right? I always look at sports, right? I'm a baseball fan, right? And seldom do you see like two teammates in the baseball field arguing. They're
true.
Always encouraging. And I bring up baseball because baseball is a game of failure, right? A Hall of Famer in baseball is a person that out of 10 times gets 3 hits.
Yeah.
And that's a 30% success rate.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're in that environment in which you are not encouraging each other, that's going to take a toll.
Yeah.
But when that's why baseball players in particular are so encouraging of their teammates.
Yeah.
Right? Because it is a game of failure. You know, you very seldom when a baseball player makes an error, right? Teammates yelling at them. It's like, come on, let's go. Let's keep moving forward, right? Because they have a collective vision and they have a collective objective.
Right. I like that analogy. It's actually a good one.
So when you really think about the individual, right? Because they have to be really good in their area, right? In baseball, you got a catcher that has to understand the scope, and then he has to like it because you have to do it consistently for 162 games in a year, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like the baseball season is grueling. It's one of the most grueling sports because this takes so long, and then you have to have patience, right? And then you have to have the team, and then you have to foster an environment in people are listening to each other, right? So most baseball players, if you read them talking, right, they're learning from one another.
Yeah.
Right? They're teaching each other how to, like, hey, look at this pitcher is doing this, doing that.
They're sharing.
They're sharing information and
not
keeping it to themselves because it benefits the team.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So you see the beauty of that dance, right? And even with that, it doesn't mean that you always are going to win the championship, right? Because it is that's more of a competition. But in work, on a day-by-day basis, these principles get lost.
Oh, yeah.
Because things get feel so mundane.
Very much
so. The more that we live from our authentic selves, right? And we bring to our organization and what we do that authenticity, couple that with the mission of the organization, and having other people in that same environment, you could see the exponential growth. Right? And that's kind of like the beauty of what the mission is. And like, just to give you a final example, I was watching a video yesterday about game theory, right? And they were testing game theory, right? And they were testing all these different tactics to win this particular game, right? And one of the tactics that the tactic that was the top, or actually all the top winning strategies that they used for this particular game were strategies that were based on cooperation rather than competition. In every single scenario that they ran, right? Cooperation rather than competition, or rather than rejecting, was what really those were the highest success in that team environment, in that scenario, right? So it was like you give your authentically, and then something happens that violates your authenticity. You solve that issue, and then you go back. If it happens again, so you deal with that issue, and then you keep moving. Because cooperation in the long term, it's really what's going to make business or individuals successful.
I like that. You said that so good.
Thank you.
No, it was good because you use analogies to kind of put out what it is that where we're coming from as you and I as a collective. You know what I mean? So I like that because those make sense.
Yeah.
So, all right. So really quick, let's talk about our vision then. So, I'm just going to read our vision. ASQ Empowerment's vision is to be a catalyst for a global transformation in leadership and organizational culture, where empowerment, innovation, and belonging drive the evolution towards success and fulfillment.
Yeah.
I love that.
I mean, if you really think about it, right, it's innovation, right? A lot of people think that innovation primarily comes from a lack, right? It's like, sometimes it's something horrible. Bad things have to happen, or you constantly need to hit restrictions in order to come up with an idea to work around it, right? And that's one way to look at it. I mean, it's a very logical way to look at it. But there's the other opposite. It's like you collectively are looking at a situation, at a challenge, and you're utilizing everyone's skill set and talents in order to overcome that challenge together, because you see it happening a lot of the times in teams, because the dynamics of the teams are also about power.
Yeah.
Right. And we can't deny the role of an individual and their they seeking power, for the desire for themselves to make themselves look like I'm the boss, But our lives have changed, and we have evolved from that archaic mentality of the one person responsible for everything. Obviously, there's always someone that orchestrates and navigates, and puts all these different things together, almost like a captain of a ship, making sure that everybody's like ruling their roles.
Right. But there are all of the spokes in the wheel, or cogs in the wheel, right? That make it go around, right?
And the reality is that some people in the organization, right, understand the overall vision and the direction, right? That's typically your upper level because they know. But there's and a lot of what gets lost is the middle management area and below, because that information or that vision sometimes is not trickled down from the people that come up with it.
It's not shared.
It's not a shared vision. It's a vision that is kind of like done in the ivory towers, and then people just have to execute.
Correct.
Without them understanding really what the scope of things. And that's the same way that I see when we're talking about a catalyst of global transformation in leadership. That's what we see right now. We see very fragmented ideas and fragmented things and fragmented outdated ideologies,
right,
that keep people apart, right
keeps people in silos,
and then keep people very unhappy when it comes to what they do,
thus again we're talking about a culture, talking about positive cultures, negative cultures, or whatever word you want to put on it, but that's part of it. And there's a huge part of it.
There's no denying that, for instance, a part of the trainings that we do go a lot into self-help, right? And into self-care, and to being able to always activate the parasympathetic nervous system when you have it, right? But every time that I'm sitting in a training or I'm listening to somebody else train, I always go back to this. What's going on in the environment? Right? Because when you have an environment that doesn't really cater to self-care, right? It doesn't really work. And what I mean by that is this, right? Oh, yeah, we're going to do a training on self-care so that you could take time out of your day and this and that and the other. But I've been in many situations in which people have no time to take care of themselves, that they have to go to get these things done. And this is what you see at cultures in which people are resigning, right? Like left and right. People are unhappy at what they do. Most people are, even in this modern, where we have so much stuff, people are so unhappy and so unfulfilled, right? It correlates to that. Not on the opposite side, right? And there's a lot of employees that have gone in the way of just giving everything to people, and that's not always the productive thing. So there's got to be a dance and an understanding, right, within the cultures as to how do we do that, right? And how do we, because there is an impact, societal, right? If an organization treats people in a way that takes away from their authenticity and doesn't allow that creativity, it has also a trickle effect,
Yeah.
On all the stuff. It has trickle effects on finances. It has trickle effects on the economy. It has trickle effects on society. Yeah. It's like all these things have we all are interconnected, so everything correlates with one another.
Right.
Yep.
So I'm glad you said that, because I know you touched on some values, and we're talking about values and how important and essential. And we've talked about in the past tons of value episodes, but ASQ empowerment values are authenticity, empowerment, transformation, belonging, and innovation. And so that kind of falls in line with a lot of things that you've already talked about, but can you just talk a little bit more?
Yeah, let me touch on each one individually.
I was going to say, maybe just talk about each of them. Yeah.
See, I think that living authentically, right, from our center, from our core self, right, it's the most important thing that we could do, right? I was reading something from I forgot the book right now, and they were talking about the importance of structure and the collective, right? The collective has to have certain expectations and certain rules, right? But also the importance of not taking away from the individual's authenticity.
Not taking away
from their individual's authenticity, right? Because you have to be able to marry the two for something to be effective, right? It's like the cells in your body, right? Because everything is fractal, right? What's in the big picture is also in the little picture, right? What's in micro is always in the macro. It's a reflection of one another, right? So if you have individuals who are not living authentically, right? That their main objective is, let's say, for instance, just for shits and giggles, right? I just want to make money.
Yeah.
Right? I just want to make money. And I'm like, okay, how much is enough for you? And what is the money for? Is it just for status, for power, for this, for that, and the other? Like, what is? There's nothing wrong against having money, but will you do anything whatever it takes for it? And will you? And this is one of the examples that are so about the lack of leadership and the individual responsibility. What we saw in 2008, right? And I said this before, with the crash of the markets and all that stuff, it was pure individual self-interest, right? Without truly understanding, like, wait a minute, I'm also part of the whole, right? So it's like if you have a person that lives authentically from values that are beneficial not only to them but to the collective, you'll see the overall growth of the organization, right? And consequently, if things are aligning, and obviously it's not always perfect, it's like as long as you go in a small wave, not in these big dips, right? You'll have a long-term success. You'll be able to adapt to situations a lot easier because you're more focused on the collective of the group and the culture rather than forces outside of your control. Because you can't control the market, you can't control the weather, you can't control fluctuations when it comes to war and things like that. But you, as an organization, as an individual, you could control that authenticity from where you operate, right? Both from the individual, but also for the business, right? Now, empowerment is something that is very interesting in leadership, right? And you know this from your studies, right? Most leaders don't want to give away power.
Nope.
Why is that?
I think there's a fear factor involved there. They're afraid of what they're going to lose. It's like people who, I've worked for managers or bosses. I say managers and bosses, and I mean it that way because that's what they have been, who, if they get a bit of information, they don't want to share it because they feel that it empowers them.
Yes.
That's false. Because when you allow other people to be empowered with decision-making, with processes, that caters to innovation, growth mindset. It just, there's so many things that I can speak to on that.
Again, it's.
Did I hit that? Did I say that?
No,
right?
you said that correctly, right?
I just want to make sure it made
when
sense.
it comes to empowerment, right, is within a structure.
Correct.
Right. It's like, because you can't, and I've always been firm with the belief of giving people the freedom to choose the things that are like that. But there has to be a certain structure,
of course,
with that, and it's a structure that has to be transparent and open, right? So, for instance, I remember one of my previous positions. I was a director, right? And during COVID, I had to make a choice, right? And I'm calling. Superior say nobody's answering, but I had to make a call. based on the situation. And I'm like, okay, can I send these people in? I don't think I should, because I already talked to the person responsible for that area, and they're telling me, no, you can't. And so I have to make a decision. And I remember I got written up for that. And I say to myself, you're making me a director. That means that you are entrusting me to make a decision on the best interest of our objective, of our vision.
Mm-hmm.
But yet, when I make a decision, when I have to make a decision and there's no one available, you write me up because of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what does that tell you? What do you think that does to an individual?
It would make me feel like I'm not capable. There's no trust.
It's like,
I have this title, but I'm not capable of doing the things that align with that title, which is making a decision when there's lack of oversight,
trust,
or from other people. Yeah.
So it's like, so what that happens a lot, particularly in middle management, right?
Oh, yeah.
So this portion of empowerment, it needs to be a give and take, right? And in which everything is delineated and clear, so people are freely able to make empowering decisions that benefit both them individually as professionally, but the collective.
Correct.
Right. And this is one thing about power that it's important to understand, that when you hold on, you are taking away from somebody else capability to contribute to your overall vision. So you, like, in essence, you're shooting yourself in the foot. Now, granted, there are going to be people in which they're not living up to what we said. But that's completely understandable. And that's why I love simple concept as the 1 minute manager, being specific with your goals, be specific with your redirects, be specific with
that all goes back to the whole idea of communication.
Communication and empowerment. Yeah.
Yes. If you're communicating the overall objectives and goals, then empowering people and them doing the right thing it's easier.
It's easier
because there's an understanding. Yes. You've been transparent.
Yeah.
Right?
And that leads to the next one, which is transformation, right? Like most managers believe, or most people, you got the busy bees and all that stuff, right? But when you empower individuals, it gives you, as a person in charge, or as a person overseeing the entire thing, it gives you the flexibility and the freedom to truly transform the organization. Because when you have time to really look at all the processes and things are operational, you could see how the organization could transform. You could begin to see where there are other opportunities that you could actually take. When you're having feedback both from the bottom and from the top as to effectiveness and continuous improvement, your organization is always going to be transforming and evolving and growing, instead of like the old school mentality of drive. And consequently, that's the beauty of it all, of transformational culture on a business level or an organizational level, is that it goes back into society.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Right? It's because most people spend their time at work, right? So think about a person that spends that, they feel like empowered, they feel energetic, they're living authentically, right? And now they're bringing that home, right? And then they're going out of their communities and they feel great.
Yeah.
And they say, hey, where do you work? Oh, I work here. This is like blah, blah. So there's always that aspect, and that's, I think, the evolution that we're doing. And from that point, right, it's a sense of the belonging, right, of a group. So that's our next value. And belonging I like better, because I will be one that I always said from the very beginning, DEI was not my thing. And the reason behind it is because you have to have everybody belong. Every culture, every individual has made mistakes in their past. There is no culture exempt from this. There is no individuals in the past that are exempt from this. History had told us that doesn't matter where people come from, there is always going to be some sort of pain that was afflicted of one group over the other, right? So a sense of belonging from the micro standpoint is accepting that authenticity within individuals, right? And from a macro point is to be able to create a belonging where all people, right, are living their authenticity by sharing who they are without taking away from somebody else.
Right.
And that's what I saw with a lot of DEI training. It was demonizing a certain group because things of the past and all that stuff, right? And I don't think that's the approach. The approach is to be more open, right? Because even if you come from a different culture, right, and you're coming into a group, there's nothing about losing who you are in that group, right? And again, it's like we have this dichotomy of power, right? Well, my culture or my perspective, because my title tells me so, it's better than this other person. So you have that. And then you can see how this happens within individual relationships, within organizations, and then within cultures, and then within countries, because it's about allowing people to be authentic, but also myself being authentic, allowing them to belong and see their strengths, and allow the other person to also see my strengths. We all have negatives. We all have shortcomings. Everybody does. And everybody's going to make mistakes. It's part of life. And as long as we allow people just to belong with who they are and be able to be curious and learn from them, then we have more of innovation, which is a large thing, right? So it's like all these things kind of like, it's like that cup that goes from one boom and fills the bottom. Because the more, one of the terms that people use in the last few years a lot was cultural appropriation, right? Right? When you bring different cultures together, guess what's going to happen? Oh, I'm going to take from that. That's pretty cool. And then you take from here, and then you take from there. And that is what innovation is, right? So you have these different perspectives of looking at the same thing. And then instead of saying, well, no, mine is better.
Right.
It's like, oh, I like that, and let's try this and see what happens.
And add it to what the situation.
You see that in food, right? It's like you have all these fusion restaurants that are popping up, bringing different cultural foods together, right? And it's delicious, innovative, right? Why can't we do that when we go to our business and be okay with having individuals that have different points of view, looking at things, bringing those things together to see how collectively you could actually bring that into the culture, so the culture could benefit, right?
Agreed.
It's this, we have to get past this individual mentalities of our biases, and also from this archaic idea of leadership, right? That one person has the vision.
Right.
That's the thing. And that one person is the stewardess. They steward that vision to make sure that everybody, it's not just their vision.
No.
Right?
No.
It's a collective.
That's not being innovative.
That's not being
at the end of the day.
You're robbing yourself of growth and innovation.
Yes.
If you do that.
Yeah. But I think a lot of people have a lot of control issues, and part of the reason why people want to say, nope, it's my way or the highway kind of attitude is because of that.
Yeah, and it's cultural. I mean, I think it's like culturally, in terms of we always have been conditioned to look at power in a certain way.
Agreed.
Right? We are always thinking about Darwin from the standpoint of survival of the fittest, right? But that's an incorrect point of view.
It is.
And you see that trickling into business, right? And you see that in finance in particular, this idea of I'm going to win, I got to win at all costs, right? Yeah. But there is nothing in nature of such thing, right? It's not survival of the fittest, it's survival of the most adaptable. And more than that, it's cooperation. Because let's say a lioness doesn't always hunt by herself.
No.
They work together. There's a pride. Yes. And they're the king and queens of the jungle. They don't do it together.
No.
They do it collectively. And everybody plays a role in the hunt.
Each play a role, yeah.
Right? And then these lions or whatever predator it is, they don't go out and destroy the entire herd.
No.
They pick.
Right.
Which one it's easier for them to to get.
Right.
Right. So it's like all these archaic ideologies that we've inherited, and they have been reevaluated, and we're beginning to say, okay, no, this is not 100% right. All these things are changing, and they're changing for the best.
Yeah.
And our objective at ASQ Empowerment Services is to be a catalyst for that change. To be able to share our lived experiences, right? Because people might say, well, what experiences do you have? What gives you
That's a whole nother episode.
No, but I kind of do want to touch into that now, because it's one of the things that I want to address right off the bat, right? it's like, because people will say, it's like, well, what skills do you have? It's like, look, I've learned leadership from Kim Mullen and Betty Medina when I was 13, 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old. You know, I know that the main thing was to help individuals grow and learn and expand. So I've learned my methodologies from him. I've been fortunate to be in a lot of middle management positions, primarily, in which I have to develop, right, and give other people opportunities to grow, and then be able to see in others, you know, I had the privilege to be able to see in others what perhaps they weren't able to see for themselves, and be able to be a guiding light or that person that encourages others to grow, to become better, right, to learn. Right. I've been fortunate to do that with professionals, but I also have been privileged to be able to do that with young people, right? And I continue to do that in many capacities, right? So that is my lived experiences with it. You know, that is my point of view. And some people might question, well, you know, what kind of success have you done? And it's like, well, look, my authenticity and the way that I've lived my life has always been important to me, right? And I think I've always been very clear about that. And my objective, whether you choose to accept it or not, is to be able to impart some of the information and the things that I've learned, right? But it's up, you know, you could take it or leave it. And that's really the mentality. That's really the authenticity that I have to bring. I don't have all the answers. And based on what we've seen, both in our society, but individually, and the experiences that we have, fuck it, give it a chance. Give it a chance. Look at it and say, well, let's try this method. Let's try this, you know, and just go from there. Yeah,
definitely.
And I think that kind of brings into the
yeah, I was going to say, I mean, I know we can talk about what our, you know, leadership for hours. Correct, so, yeah. And we only have a few minutes. So kind of want to just end this episode with, what are the services that ASQ Empowerment Services offers? I said that twice, but you know what I mean? Yeah. And then we'll just kind of do a little recap. Okay. So what are our services, right? So basically we offer tailored coaching. So when we talk about tailored coaching, what do we mean by that? So
we talked about individual coaching, right? Also leadership coaching, both from the individual standpoint, but also from the group standpoint, right? There is always a benefit to doing things in isolation as an individual, but then also doing things collectively, right? Because what that does is that it helps you expand. It helps you expand your point of reference, right? If you're open,
of course,
if you're willing and if you're open, you could see different points of view, so you could see different perspective, which enhances, you know, your capabilities as an individual and as a leader, right? So the coaching, it's just about helping you find that power that you already have, and then be able
discovering it
and rediscovering it, and then be able to benefit the individuals and the whole in whatever organization group you belong to.
Right. And so I think the next thing that we offer are workshops. So that kind of goes into the collective that you were talking, the group that you were talking about.
And in a lot of our workshops, what we're going to be focusing on is it's that dance,
right?
The micro and the macro. You know, the individual and the organization. How do those things correlate, and how can you align yourself better, you know, with the overall, with both, right? Or, which is completely logical and completely plausible, is realizing, oh, this is not the right place for me. Or from the other point of view, it's like, oh, my culture is not conducive. I got to change something.
Something's got to change.
So you see how it's, and it's okay. And this is the thing that it's like, we are so combative when it comes to things, right? And so territorial.
Rigid,
right? And I've seen it so often. You were so rigid when it comes to that it's a shift in consciousness about allowing somebody to be, but also allowing and saying, no, this is not what I belong.
Right. And be okay with it.
And be okay with that. Or saying as the person in the steward of this organization, say, oh, no, we're doing things incorrectly, right? And data, you could measure that by data.
Oh, of course.
Totally. Your turnover rate, you know, your rate of absences.
You can use data both qualitatively and quantitatively.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Because I think both are relevant.
Correct.
I mean, I'm more of a qualitative person because that's what I did my dissertation. You know, that's how I did it. But
quantitative.
But if you were looking at data, numbers
you know,
don't lie.
Turnover, absences, times off, all these things relate to kind of like the culture, your, the burnout rate, your efficiencies. So those are all things that we could actually do and talk about during our workshops as well.
And we also, just to I think each of these piggyback off each other. The other things that we offer are training, individualized training based on the situation, the needs of the associate or of the organization, which is where the organizational consulting comes in.
Correct.
To figure that out, we use assessments and sort of have a conversation as to where the organization is desiring to end up or go.
Correct.
Right? Or what path they're trying to take.
Or help them identify really their vision. It's like us. It's like us, right? We started with asoulsquest and this philosophical and mystical ideas of the individual growth and all that stuff. And we've reevaluated and evolved into where we are right now.
Correct.
So it's always about evaluating exactly where you want to end up and what is your point. Realizing that sometimes your vision might not be 100% correct with where you are at that time. That might need to change.
Right.
What are the things that you're not going to change about the authentic self? Primarily your value system, right? But you might have to pivot and adjust
the pain points. You got to address the pain point areas. So, and then finally, what I always like to say is your favorite. We also do public speaking engagements. And so we have a myriad of topics that we speak on as far as that's concerned.
And primarily our topics kind of like stem from, after doing all this for a couple of years now, then reading a lot and learning a lot. It's the important thing is that dance within the micro and the macro, right? And the responsibilities that both have, right? For a successful endeavor, either it be a society, an organization, a marriage, right? All these things. So like our topics kind of like relate to that. And how could you live authentically, allow somebody else to live authentically, and then you still have that dance when people are not stepping on each other's feet.
Right. Which, depending on the dance, I tend to step on feet. I'm being I'm being transparent.
That's fine.
So, and of course, we offer these services to invoke or to kind of foster self-awareness and
transformation, change.
Right. So, and improve decision-making processes and things like that, both as an individual, because you talk about like families, as a parent, children, etc. So I think this kind of touches every area, right?
Well, I think like by being immersed in all this, even from the points of trainings like rap training, peer training, coaching training, leadership training, cultural understanding, like all those things are they're not interchangeable. It's like truly where you live authentically as an individual, right? You could bring that into every scenario that you're with.
That's what I'm saying.
Right?
Yeah.
And then be able to align, because if your values as a person are not aligning with a relationship, it's like you're going to be miserable. So it's like understanding that cell aspect, that micro aspect, right, goes into everything else. It trickles. We are individuals, but we don't live in isolation, right? So we have to be able to understand all those things, and I had to learn experientially, both with pain but also with joy, right?
Yeah.
And it's much easier to do it with joy than it is with pain.
I was going to say.
So that's one of the reasons why I think this is one of the things that we want to do, doing it with joy rather than pain.
Absolutely, yeah. And bring that out to the rest of the world, to the community and whatnot. So, and share what we've learned, right? So just to kind of conclude, I just kind of want to go over and just recap what the outcomes are if you choose to engage with ASQ Empowerment Services. So first, you're going to have a transformative journey. Right?
Yep. And meaning that's really the process, right? Transformation, evolution, living more congruently, and then living by that adage of do unto others as you would like to do unto you, right?
Yes.
It's like all those things, again, that we talked about in the past in asoulsquest, and we're bringing in all those things truly, really, truly correlate.
Yeah.
In everything that we do, particularly when it comes to leadership and culture.
Correct. Secondly, we are definitely honing in on elevating emotional and social intelligence skills.
Yeah. And that's what leadership is, so elevate leadership capabilities. What it does, a leader really, more than the know-how of a role, right? It's really about the wisdom to see the interconnectedness of people,
right,
and how to help maximize, or how to guide them to maximize their talents and their skills, right? By helping them live authentically, right? That and consequently, by you doing so, and they're being empowered, you will benefit.
Right.
It's a great thing.
And getting people to see that, because that's a missing piece, in my opinion, is knowing that you are also benefiting as a result of, which we talked about earlier.
Cooperating and sharing and doing unto others. So, like, you will benefit. Yeah. It's like, we have this idea of equality, right? It's not about that we should all be treated treat others as you would like to be treated, with dignity, with that ability that there's somebody, that they're worth it, that they're just not a person that's just going to do a job for me. I just need you to do your job.
Right.
Like, I've seen it even in nonprofits.
Oh yeah.
Even in nonprofits, I've seen people begin be berated and belittled. Right. Why is that necessary? Maybe that person is just not fitting in this environment, and it's okay to tell them, look, I love you, I think you're great, but this is not the vehicle for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And doing it with compassion rather than callousness.
Callousness. Yeah. Yeah.
Callousness.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's what that's kind of like what it means to elevate your leadership capabilities. Because it's okay to know that some people, they're not capable of certain things.
Right.
It's okay.
Yeah.
But it's how you deliver that message.
You're helping them if you can deliver that message.
Yes.
With care and grace and empathy.
And empathy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Reshaping organizational cultures to be more adaptive, innovative, and aligned with their highest aspirations. I think that's something that you've touched on that quite a bit today.
Yeah, I think we touched into that idea of living authentically. Because if you're living authentically and you're transformationally growing as an individual and a collective, you know that there are things that are going to be outside of your control. Yeah. Because that's life, right? And there's no exception. Markets change, donors change, customers' needs change. And when you have less friction within your culture, and people are working authentically and they're really collaborating and contributing, you're going to be able to make those pivots a lot easier and a lot faster.
Yeah.
Right? Than if you're constantly in friction internally.
Yeah, I agree. And finally, participants, anybody who participates with ASQ Empowerment Services, emerge as more empowered leaders capable of inspiring change and fostering environments where individuals thrive.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's the ultimate objective for me and for us and for everything that we've done the last few years leading up to this point has been to highlight and to do an attempt to depict the importance of the individual and the importance of that authenticity, the importance of truly knowing yourself, right? And now we're segueing into adding that as to how do we bring all those things into the collective, into the macro, right? Because one cannot coexist without the other.
Thank you for tuning into this episode. If you're ready for meaningful personal growth and transforming your business or organization, please visit our website at asqempowermentservices.com for more information. And stay tuned for more exciting topics.